It's nice to see some of you. Those of you who I cannot see, I can imagine you. It's nice. It's nice that you're here. It's nice that we can join together. In America, we have a expression. I don't know if this is shared in other English speaking cultures or not. But we have this expression called the terrible twos. Terrible twos. Refers to a particular stage of development, human development, around the age of 2, when a child learns that they have a personal will and they have power. And there's a particular expression, particular word that accompanies this power, and that word is no. It's time to eat your peas. No. It's time to take a bath. No. And it's a, that's a very important power, the ability to say no. So I think that at another time it would be worthwhile exploring that power of saying no in more depth. But today I'd like to focus on the power of saying yes, uh, because I think that many of us, in some way, we get stuck in the terrible twos. It's terrible that we call it terrible twos. But I think a lot of us, in some ways, get stuck there. So I wonder, do you ever find yourself in life just feeling like no? You ever notice that? You ever notice you just think, no, it shouldn't be like this. No, no, I won't have it like this. No, it's not fair. What kind of God would allow life to be like this with all of this terrible misery and suffering for me and for others too, Can look out there and we can have a pity party, right? It's not fair for me. It's not fair for them. Look at all of the people suffering. We have to endure all of these terrible things. We have to endure hunger. We have to endure fatigue. We have to endure other people. There's that one. We have to endure, all of these tasks that we have to deal with. We have to endure cold. We have to endure heat. We have to endure all kinds of difficulties with the body and with the mind and economics, right? I mean, that's a big one. You ever have that thought, like, it's not fair, money. Money's not fair. We should just distribute it all. Everybody should just have enough. There's enough to go around. We should just hold hands and sing Kumbaya and feed everybody. It's a nice idea. But we can use that in this way where we just say, no, I'm not gonna. Like, life is here and life is saying, here you go. Here's what's up. Here's what's happening. It's like, it's cold. And you can just say, no, not fair, not gonna. Or life is just saying, okay, you got to figure out where you're going to get your food from. And you say, no, not fair, not gonna. Or life is saying, you're going to, here's what's happening. You're going to just figure out how to deal with other people. And you say, no, not gonna. And I've mentioned this before because I hear this a lot from people. I don't want to overstate it. I don't hear it like from everybody, but I hear it often enough that uh, I suspect that it happens more frequently than just for the people who mention it. I think probably those who mention it are just willing to express this because it's a little bit taboo. But I hear from people uh, that they feel so upset, so wronged by life that they're gonna dig in their heels and say no in a big way. They're gonna say no to life. They're gonna end their life. Like they're gonna flip the bird to God. You know, oh yeah, God, you're gonna make me have to deal with life. Well, watch what I can do. No, not gonna. And I can understand because I've been there, gone there, had those thoughts. I've been stuck in the terrible twos. And but I think it's a miserable way to live because even though it's a very important power, one that we can, I think, should use uh, in appropriate ways. And unfortunately, many of us fail to use it in appropriate ways, the power to say no. We use it in all the wrong ways and not in any of the right ways, which only feeds into the pattern. Because if you don't say no where you should say no, if you just say yes where you should say no, then it really starts to add up to a life where you just feel like, God, sucks. It's miserable. What kind of life is this? What kind of God would allow this? Well, hey, it's you. I mean, to a certain extent, at least, it's like you could at least start to exercise your own powers intelligently. And once you've really gotten that nailed down, when you have figured out how to use your powers to maximum effect to support your good life, when you learn how to say yes appropriately and no appropriately, if you're still unhappy, then take it up with God. But until then, deal with your own backyard. Like you just deal with your own stuff. And then only once you've got that sorted out, then point the finger at God and take it up with the guy upstairs. So so learning to open up to the option of saying yes, learning that we have that power, learning that it's a really wonderful power to have, and it's a wonderful power to know how to make use of, that can help us in so many ways in life is a wonderful thing. It can open up so many options in life. It can remove so much suffering. It can allow for much more joy and peace and connection and harmony and abundance, believe it or not. So I'd like to explore that in a little bit of detail, how we can start to learn about and start to make use of and exercise this power of yes, how we can grow beyond the terrible twos and learn that we have much more power than that. So if you think about it, at 2 years old, how much power did you really have? Not that much, right? I mean, you were pretty much at the mercy of the things around you, the people who were determining what your life was going to look like. For most of us, that was mommy and daddy, or maybe it was mommy, or it was daddy, or it was some mommy or daddy surrogate, but it was they were the ones who were determining these things. And we learn that we could say no. We learn that we could keep our mouth shut. You want to try to make me eat, you can't. You want to make me brush my teeth, you can't. We could become very heavy and difficult to move. You want to make me take a bath, you go ahead and try. We could do that. And it's an interesting thing to explore. But if that's all that we really know, then uh, it's a recipe for victimization and misery in life. So I would like to invite you to just explore this and notice, even if you think that this does not apply to you, maybe especially if you think it doesn't apply to you, uh, just be willing to, with an open mind, explore, are there ways in which you just habitually, reactively say no because you don't know that you have any other options? Because you feel powerless, because you feel angry, because you feel defeated, because you feel frustrated, because you feel victimized, because you want to be seen or heard, because you want to be respected. Are there ways that you just habitually say no? And you could think about, in the morning, what's the first thought that crosses your mind? You have a habitual first thought, and just notice, is that thought, is that a yes or is it a no? Or does it provoke a yes or a no? Not again. That's a no. That's a big no. Not again. Anybody else have that one? Not again? Or something very much like that? So if you happen to notice a thought like that, a response like that, first thing in the morning, then I think there's really good news here for you, because that means that there is, with one simple change, one obvious change, just by introducing new options, first thing, your whole day could change. Your whole life could change. I mean, if you start your day with no, not this, not again, not now, not today, not me. That's one that is familiar to me. I'm like, my MO is, for a long time, it's like, you got the wrong guy. I don't know why I'm here, but you got the wrong guy. Somehow it's like I'm like in a Alfred Hitchcock movie or something. It's like, wait a second, you got the wrong guy. I shouldn't be here. This is happening to the wrong. It was a mistake. So what I'll introduce an idea. I mean, think about this. I'll propose this in a couple of different ways. One is, if you have got this all figured out, if you know the answers to all of life's questions, if you know the right questions and the right answers, if you know how all of this is working and you know what everything should and shouldn't be, well, don't you suppose then that you'd have it a little bit more dialed in? I mean, just tell the truth about it. If you really have it all figured out, then what's your excuse for why this is not, why you would be saying no? to life. If you know the answers, if you've got it all figured out, doesn't that suggest at least a possibility, maybe even a high probability that you might be wrong or mistaken? Like about something, about some things. Maybe that you don't have it all figured out. Maybe you don't know everything. Maybe you don't know what's what. Maybe you don't know the answers to everything. Maybe you don't even know the right questions in some cases. Doesn't it suggest that possibility? So that's one way of looking at it. Another way of looking at it is this. Same basic idea, but just flipped it around. And you've probably heard me talk about this before, but really try it on. Just really try these things on. Just I'm not suggesting that you should accept any of this as truth. I'm just inviting you to try these things on, to explore them for yourself and just see for yourself what this might open up for you. So if you're willing to really explore it sincerely for yourself, if you're willing to try it on, then it's risk free in the sense that like there's no harm that's going to come from trying it on. Maybe you'll like it. If you like it, isn't that good news? Then it's like, hey, now you got a new option. If you don't like it, it's fine. You take it off, leave it here. You don't have to take it with you. So it's just about the willingness to try it on, just to see what options might exist for you. So here's the other way of exploring this or thinking about this. Notice the sun rose this morning. Did you make it rise consciously? You can say no. Now start to notice all of the things that are happening and have happened that you did not consciously do. Things which are supporting you, right? Like gravity. You didn't do that. It's supporting you. The atmosphere, you didn't do that, but it's supporting you. The food that you have eaten, you didn't make that happen. You didn't make the food exist. You didn't make the food grow. You didn't make the food arrive to your store or whatever, wherever you got it from. Even if you say, wait a second, Joey, no, 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 I produce all of my food on my own. I have I've got my 1 acre homestead and I grow all of my food and raise the things and everything. It's like, okay, fine. But did you actually make it grow? You can say no, you didn't make it happen. You might have participated in the process, right? I mean, you could have planted the seeds, you could have tended to the soil, you could have done all of those things, but you didn't make it grow. You didn't make the food exist. You didn't make the conditions in which food was a thing. You didn't come up with the idea of an apple. You didn't figure that out. So all of this is provided for you. Your heart beats. You don't know how to do that. You don't know how to make the cells in your body to do their thing, but all of that is provided for you. So again, just as you try that on, consider, doesn't that suggest the possibility, and I would suggest even the probability, high probability, that there is some intelligence greater than your conscious mind, which is operating here, inside of you and outside of you, that you don't understand and you don't need to understand. Thankfully, that that would be, I mean, think about how many years did you go to school? Most of us went to school for a lot of years. And in all of those years, what did you learn? Not that much. Not that much. In the grand scheme of things, not that much. I mean, if you think about, you say, well, oh, look at me, I've got 3 PhDs. I'm so smart. I've learned so many things. I'm very, very, very intelligent. Okay. But when you compare that to the totality of all of the knowledge, it's like a single grain of sand, isn't it? When you consider everything that you know consciously, everything that you will ever know consciously, everything that every human combined knows consciously, still like a grain of sand in the totality, in the totality of knowledge of everything that exists and all that happens and all the inner workings and the outer workings. It's just a tiny, 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 infinitesimally small fraction. We know almost nothing. So if you had to know everything consciously in order for any of this to function, it wouldn't function. We take it for granted. We take all of this for granted. It's hard not to. So I'm not suggesting that you need to try to force yourself to walk around in this state of total recognition, acknowledgement, and gratitude all the time for the totality of all the knowledge, which is infinitesimally larger than the combined total conscious knowledge of all humans through all eternity, and just say, thank you, God, for all of this. I'm so grateful, and just fall down on the ground in ecstasy. I mean, that would be interesting, but I'm not suggesting you need to do that. I'm just pointing out that you could at least momentarily try that on and just notice how that could offer a different perspective. And from that different perspective, you could maybe start to realize that there's a lot more going on here than what you normally are considering when you have that knee-jerk habitual reaction of no. If you think, no, not now, not today, not me, not this, then just notice that that comes from a assumption that you are in a position to know something about what all of this is and what should be. Because there's another possibility. Another possibility is that everything is exactly perfect. I'm not suggesting you should believe that or that you need to try to force yourself to believe that. I'm just suggesting it is another possibility. That is a possibility that does exist. It's possible that this is all perfect. So then why make the assumption that there's something wrong? Because that's the assumption that has to be there in order to say no. I mean, if somebody said to you, imagine this, somebody comes up to you and they say, "Excuse me, but I have here uh $100 billion, and there's nothing funny about this whatsoever. It's totally ethical, legal. It's totally morally upright. Nobody is harmed in any way by this. It's only good here. This is not taking away from anybody. Nobody was harmed in the least in order to provide this money, but it's here for you. I've been searching you out. This is rightfully yours, and I would like to give this to you. No strings attached, no conditions whatsoever. You don't even need to sign anything. You gonna say yes or no? Anybody here gonna say no? Nobody's gonna be contrarian and say they're gonna say no. You would say yes, wouldn't you? Because if it's clearly presented in a way where you can accept that this is good, It's good. Well, hold on. I've, I've, I could do with some money. Some money would help me out. I would appreciate that. It's sort out some of the things that I stress about. I could do good things with that money. That could support me in a lot of ways that I could see would be really useful. Uh, and you've dealt with all of my objections. There's nothing bad about this whatsoever. It's like, oh, okay, I'll say yes. You'll definitely say yes. So what if, I mean, there's a possibility that life already is like that. That life itself is like that. Life is already, there's a possibility. I'm not saying that I can prove that this is true to you. I'm just saying it is a possibility. So just try it on. There's a possibility that life is like that already, that life is like somebody approaching you with $100 billion that they want to give you that's yours rightfully, and there's nothing negative about it whatsoever. There's a possibility that that's what life is like. I'm not saying that life is giving you $100 billion. I'm saying it's like that in as much as it's good. It's good for you. It would be supportive of your greatest good. There's no harm in it. There's nothing bad about it. There is a possibility that life is like that. Every second is like that. There's a possibility. But we don't assume that that's the case. We assume that it's not like that. We assume life is out to get us. Something funny is going on here, right? We're certain something bad is going on. Somebody wants to hurt us, somebody wants to trick us. There's not enough. Something bad is going to happen. I'm not supported. This is what's going on in our minds. And therefore we say no, not gonna. Like mommy and daddy might not have been perfect. They might have been far from perfect. But and so they were just operating from their own limitations. They might have had severe limitations that distorted their positive intentions, but there were definitely positive intentions underneath it all, at the very least. So when mommy and daddy wanted you to eat your peas, or they wanted you to take a bath, or they wanted you to brush your teeth, or they wanted you to go to bed, or whatever, underneath that, there were some positive intentions, might have been distorted. And so it's understandable because of the distortions, because of the imperfections, because of the confusion, that we wouldn't have understood those positive intentions. We wouldn't have understood that as life supporting us. We would have misunderstood it. We would have thought this is just something that's an imposition upon my freedom. This is just something that's trying to hurt me. It's just something that's trying to limit me. It's just something that's trying to make me uncomfortable or miserable. So we develop this habit of perceiving life in that way. But if you really look at it honestly, can you know that it's true? Can you know that it's true that the that whatever the beliefs are, that life's out to get you, that life's unfair, that there's never enough, that there's something wrong, that it's not safe, whatever those beliefs are, can you actually know that it's true? You can say no. You can't know that it's true. You can only believe that it's true. You can have evidence that you use to support your belief, but that doesn't prove that it is true. It just means that you have evidence that you use to support the belief. So I'm not trying to convince you that this other way is true or that your beliefs are untrue because I'm not in that business. I don't even know. I don't, I personally, I don't think it's not my experience that truth. is something that uh, is polarized in that way. In my own experience, truth is something that's transcendent of those polarizations of good and bad, desirable, undesirable, safe, not safe. So I'm not trying to convince you of truth. I'm just trying to present to you some other options so that you can explore your authentic powers and not be uh, limited to just these old habits that are not probably not serving you optimally. So there's a possibility that life is actually supporting you. There's a possibility. In fact, I would go so far as to say there's actually fairly abundant evidence that life is supporting you. Now, you might take issue with some of the details, right? You might say, well, sure, life is supporting me by giving me air. Life is supporting me, I mean, first of all, by having consciousness at all, by being alive, by having, by existing. Life is already supporting me. There's that. And then on top of that, I have, I'm provided with air, I'm provided with earth, I'm provided with light, I'm provided with heat, I'm provided with a body, I'm provided with a brain, I'm provided with skin, I'm provided with cells that have intelligence in them that know how to do their own thing, I'm provided with organs, I'm provided with a heart that beats, I'm provided with society that, for all of its shortcomings, at least it does provide me with the things that it provides me with. I'm provided with the ability, with language and the ability to understand it and make use of it, even if sometimes seemingly imperfectly. How funny. And uh, could go on and on. You know, I'm provided with all this. So there's abundant evidence that life is supporting me, but then we might take issue with some of the details. We say, well, but I would really like to have more money. But I would really like it if the people around me would behave a little differently. But uh, if only my muscles were a little bit stronger and firmer, and if only my fat tissue was a little bit shaped differently, and if only my teeth were a little bit straighter or whiter, or if only whatever. So some details. But at least if we really look at it in a particular way, we could start to recognize that there is abundant evidence that life is supporting us. It's just some minor details, really, in the big scheme of things that we might take issue with. So then we could say, well, okay, fine, you twisted my arm. I can see that life is supporting me in many ways, but I really do take issue with these details, and you call them small, but I call them painful and unbearable. Okay, fine, fair enough. But then we get into this business of, so is a couple of things. One, uh, I'll say this first because I think maybe it's the more significant of the two. Is compulsively saying no only because you're afraid and you don't know any other better options actually serving you? So if you say, well, I'm pretty sure that there are these details that are unbearable and miserable and yada yada, and you say, and um, even if we were to accept that that's true, then again, the question is, given that, is being compelled to say no only because you don't know any other options actually serving you? And I would say probably not. I'm not trying to, I'm not asking you to believe anything. I'm just presenting these things. So don't take what I say as the truth. I'm just proposing these things so that you can explore them, try them on, and see what options these open up for you. But I am proposing, from my perspective, it does not seem to serve to be compelled to say no only because I don't have awareness of any other better options. Because if I think about it, and I'm inviting you also to consider this, in my life, when I reflect back on the things that I just say no to over and over and over, if every morning I wake up and I say, not again, how is that helping me? Doesn't seem to be helping me. That saying, just saying no, not again. Well, then all I'm really doing apparently is just hoping. Every night I guess I hope and I say, oh, I hope that tomorrow I won't say not again. Doesn't seem to be working very well. So being compelled to say no does not seem to be supportive of what I really want. So that's one thing. The other thing is, doesn't it seem possible? And I've already suggested this, but I'm inviting this question again because I think it can be really useful. Doesn't it seem possible that you might be wrong about some of these things? I'm not saying that you necessarily can immediately see how specifically you're wrong, or that I'm not even saying you are wrong. I'm just saying, doesn't it seem possible that you might be wrong? Now, if you say, no, it's not possible that I'm wrong, I'm definitely right about these things, then I would say for sure, I would really strongly encourage you to question that more deeply because that seems like uh, a red flag. If you're not willing to entertain sincerely the possibility that you might be wrong, that's probably hiding some real deep insecurity. And it would probably be very powerful for you to just be willing to sincerely consider that maybe you might be wrong. I mean, it's like, have you ever been wrong about anything? I've been wrong about an awful lot. If you've been wrong, if you've ever demonstrated yourself that you have been wrong about anything, then it proves that's a thing, right? It proves that it's possible to be wrong and that it's possible for you to be wrong, which would mean that it's possible for you to be wrong about something else. I see that as really good news. I think it's really, really wonderful news because if I cannot be wrong, if I can only be right, and I believe that I'm a victim and that life is miserable and that I'm being put upon and I'm being made to suffer and that life's out to get me and nothing's fair and yada yada. If I believe that and I am never wrong, well, then it only follows from there that a person would have to eventually conclude that they want out, right? And then this leads right into what I talked about earlier, which a person's like, well, you know what? Screw this. I'm out of here. I'm done. Just gotta plot the surefire way to end things so that it doesn't go badly. But but that is a a desperate conclusion based upon, I believe, some bad assumptions. And that's why I'm pointing out. I think the admission that I can be wrong, that I therefore might be wrong, in fact, I probably am wrong about some of the things that I believe, is very good news because it frees me, and it could free you from so many of these traps that have led to this kind of Groundhog Day experience where you wake up every morning and you think, not again, not today, not me, not this, not now. And if it doesn't happen first thing in the morning, it happens at some point for most of us, doesn't it? I mean, if it's not first thing in the morning, then it's when you're going to work or you're going to school or you're going to take care of the kids or you're going to, whatever you're going to do, the thing where you say, oh, not this. So, as I said at the beginning, the power to say no is really important, and most of us don't, haven't learned how to say no to the things that would really serve us to say no to. And that contributes to this whole problem. That's a whole other topic, though. So I don't want to get sidetracked too much and go into detail on that. But I just want to, I do want to point out that that is a significant problem. So that also needs to be addressed at some point. We do need to, for ourselves, get clear about how we have we do have that power and we have the responsibility to use it intelligently to serve us. So learning how to say no to those things which we should say no to is important. And today, as I've said, I really want to focus more on saying yes, where it would serve us to say yes. So when you're saying no, and you're saying no over and over and over and over and over, and it's not giving you good results, what I'm inviting today is the possibility of looking at what about, you could just start to ask the question, what could I say yes to here that would serve me? And just start to investigate that. What could I say yes to that could serve me? I'm not suggesting that you should say yes to the things you should say no to. I'm not suggesting that you say yes to misery, that you say yes to abuse, that you say yes to poverty, that you say yes to the things like that. I'm not suggesting that at all. I'm saying, what are the things that you're saying no to that you would be better served to say yes to instead of saying no in a compulsive way? So this might require some discernment because there might be things that get mixed up. Maybe you're saying no be to a let's say to a job and you're saying no to it. I mean, you're saying yes because you're going, but you're saying no because you're making yourself miserable about the whole thing. Okay? Maybe that's the case. So there's probably some things that you would be served to get more clarity about so that you could actually start to say no to the things that would serve you to say no to in that, which might be aspects of the job. It might be the whole job itself. It might be certain beliefs that you're holding about yourself or life that it would serve you to learn to say no to. And there's also components that it would serve you to say yes to instead of saying no compulsively. Because if you just keep doing the things, you're stuck in these patterns, you're saying no, and you're creating this resistance, this inner conflict. You're producing so much stress for yourself. Then just what I'm inviting today is to start to explore, ask these questions. What is here that I could start to say yes to that could serve me instead of saying no? Like if you happen to be a person who's in the habit of waking up and saying not again, then instead of that, which is probably not serving you, you could just ask yourself, well, what is here that would serve me to say yes to? So you could start to, you'd start to distinguish between the the parts that are maybe more appropriately no's and the parts that are more appropriately yeses, but you'd mix them up all together. You jumbled them all up and you were just compulsively saying no to the whole thing. So you could start to notice, okay, well, let me slow it down a little bit. So do I really want to say no to life? Do I really want to say no to today? Because if you wake up and you say not again, then you're saying no to today. You're saying no to life, right? You've just jumbled it all up. You're really saying no to life. So instead of saying no to life, instead of saying no today, what is there that I could and would be served by saying yes to? Maybe I could start to say, well, I could say I could say yes to the opportunity of being alive. I could say yes to the opportunity of learning a new way, better ways. I could say yes to this breath. I could say yes to having woken up today. I could say yes to the fact that I have feet. I could say yes to the fact that apparently I have a bed to sleep in because I woke up in it. I could say yes to having a drink of water. So we're just starting to distinguish, it's like, okay, there are things maybe it's still no, or where there's a tendency toward no, that's fine. But I could at least start to distinguish and realize, well, there's some things that it would really serve me to say yes to instead of just no to life. Like I'm going to dig in my heels. I'm like, oh, not again. What am I going to, I got to do this again. I got to get up. I got to do life again. I got to deal with all these people. I got to deal with all these things. I got to deal with finances and bills. And oh my goodness, you just say no to the whole thing. That's not serving. So instead, it's like, well, okay, so let me just put those things to the side for a moment. I'll get to them. There's a time and place for dealing with those things, but let me at least get clear about what things are what. So I could start to say yes to some things instead of saying no to life. I could start to say, well, okay, I've got something I can work with here. I'm supported in some ways. You know, my heart is beating. Yes. Cells seem to be doing their thing. Yes. Brain is still functioning well enough. Yes. My eyes seem to be working. Yes. I have, like creative ideas come to me. I'll say yes to that. Instead of being stuck in the same old dysfunctional habits, I'll say yes to some creative new ideas. Those creative new ideas might not all be the ideas that are going to solve my so-called problems, but at least I'm going to say yes to the to creative new ideas. Can you see how if we just say no to the whole thing, then we're just shutting it all down. There's no how are you going to change anything if you just say no? And this goes back to uh, fundamental law, which is the law of attention. So whatever you put your attention on, that's where the energy goes. So if we lump it all together in this very crude way, and we just say no, where is the attention going? The attention is going to no, not gonna, don't want it, not good, don't like it. Life's not fair. Life sucks. Life's too hard. That's where the attention goes. Well, have have you noticed then? You get more of it, right? The more you do that, the easier it becomes to experience that, to produce that. So the the neurons that fire together wire together. So you you think this thing, you imagine that thing, you feel this thing, you say no, you repeat that morning after morning after morning. And so your nervous system makes it easier for you to do that because the neurons that fire together wire together. So pretty soon your nervous system says, I'm noticing a pattern here. let me make it easier for you. You don't need to try and do all of these complex things individually. We'll just make them happen automatically, unconsciously. So let's just make sure we got this right. As soon as you wake up, you're just gonna in a in a single flash, you're gonna just notice all of the terrible, awful, unbearable things, and you're just gonna cringe and tense up, and you're gonna say, "Oh, not again." You're like, "Yeah, pretty much. That's it." It's like, great. We got it. We got it. We've got this all figured out. So then you don't have to think about it. It just happens automatically. But then it's all lumped together. And you can't change anything because it just happens automatically. And so the only thing that you can do is, night before you say, fingers crossed, I hope and pray that tomorrow will be different. And it can happen. It sometimes does happen statistically, though. I'm not sure the exact numbers, but it's low. It's like, I don't know, 1 in a million, something like that. It doesn't happen for many people, not very often. Much more reliable, though, and this is the good news. Much more reliable is if you want change, instead of just saying, I hope that tomorrow I'll be the 1 in a million. Instead of that, I suggest use your God-given powers to investigate and have more discernment. You can start to recognize, okay, let me start to tease this apart. What could I say yes to? And the law of attention, again, whatever you put your attention on, that's where the energy goes. So if you were to do this, and if I'm not totally full of shit, you might find that things start to shift and it becomes automatic to notice what serves you to say yes to and to automatically say yes to it, which will become a virtuous cycle in which it's easier to notice what serves you to say yes to and to say yes to it, which will make it clearer and clearer what it would be useful to say no to. Might not make it easier. It might, but it might not make it easier to say no to those things, which is why I think it would be useful to explore that as its own topic. Because a lot of the time we get hung up on saying no for other reasons. Like we start to imagine, I mean, the same basic power is power of attention. We start to imagine all of the terrible things that will happen if we say no. Oh God, people will think badly of me. Oh God, people will reject me. Oh God, I'll feel embarrassed. But that's its own topic that we can explore in more detail at another time. So for today, as usual, so many words, blah blah blah, to say something very simple, but maybe uh, there's something of value in that for you. I'll wrap that portion up, and then if people have questions, so the some people have not been here for a while, so the format's changed a little bit. I'm so that I can just keep this recording going and then put it up on YouTube. I'm just taking questions through the chat so they can be anonymous that way. So if you've got something that you'd like to put in the chat, feel free to do that. And then when everybody's done their thing and we all feel satisfied, we can wrap it up. So I'll open the chat and just see what comes across. Somebody told me to party on. Reminded of Wayne's World. Party on, Wayne. party on, Garth. Okay, so we got a question here that somebody put in earlier. They said they couldn't stick around, so but they're still here. Amazing. Um, so a person says, "Do you think you can help me with removing limiting beliefs on a particular topic in a session with you? Because maybe it's hard if we don't understand it fully. And I want to ask, do you ever experience bad days, moments, or feelings like us?" Um, like, like, like you mere mortals, you mean? Um, I'll think about that from here up on my pedestal. Um, so in terms of removing limiting beliefs, sure. I mean, I can give you a general overview of the process at a very high level here, which you could then work with on your own. And if you're satisfied with that, then great. And if you want to follow up with me personally, then just send me an email and let me know. So, um, the general thing to keep in mind with beliefs is that a belief is not the truth. A belief is uh, a association between a meaning and various evidence that you have associated with that meaning to try and bolster it or support it, give a sense of reality to it. So, like a classic example of a limiting belief that many people have is, I'm not good enough. A lot of people have that belief. Uh, or people will have the belief, I'm not enough, or I'm not important, or I'm not worthy, or I don't deserve good. These are all kind of the very, very common beliefs. So, the if you have one of those beliefs, you could just any belief really, but I'm just using those as common examples. If you happen to have one of those beliefs, you could notice that there's the meaning, and that meaning actually is nonsense. It's total nonsense. It doesn't seem like it when you have the belief, but actually it's complete nonsense, gibberish. And it seems to be real or true because of the associated evidence. So the associated evidence would be things that you've seen, things that you've heard. So if you happen to have the belief, I'm not good enough, it actually is total nonsense. That those sounds put together in that way make no sense at all. But they seem to make sense. And this is true of everything, every idea, every word, every concept, every label, that it is absolute nonsense, but it seems to make sense because of the evidence that you've associated with those sounds or that sequence of sounds. So, I'm not good enough. If you notice, the only way to have that seems to make sense is because you have things that come to mind that support that. Well, there was the time when this happened and that happened and this other thing. And those all mean I'm not good enough. But actually, they don't mean that. It's just an association. So that's the fundamental thing to understand is that that's what a belief is. And so to release the belief is to release that association. Once you've released the association, then it will clearly be nonsense. You can think uh, those sounds and it will make no sense at all. So if you happen to have the belief, I'm not good enough, then once you release that belief, you could think, I'm not good enough, or say, I'm not good enough, and it would make no sense to you at all. That's the test. So that's what a belief is, that's how it's structured, and then the test is once you've released it, then will it will be complete nonsense to you. Uh, So how do you release that association? A lot of different ways that you could do that. Um, Too many that for me to try to describe here. One really, really, really simple way that sometimes works immediately, and so I'll mention it here because it can work so uh, quickly, and it's such a simple approach, is you can, if you know, once you've identified what the belief is as expressed through words, then you can say that belief uh, very slowly with space between the words. For example, if the belief is I'm not good enough, then you would do it like this. I'm not good enough. Uh, Often that will work. I can't give you exact percentages on how often it works, but it works often enough. It's worth trying. Um, Another way that can work that's relatively simple is just to go through all of the evidence that you have, the visual evidence. Usually it's visual evidence. You could have visual, auditory, and kinesthetic, felt sense that you associate with that meaning. You could just go through and inventory that and then notice how none of those things actually mean inherently what you have thought it meant. You just want to go through and notice that those things don't have any inherent meaning. They just are phenomena that don't mean anything. So that's another way to do it. So you can play with that on your own. And then if you need or want further support with that, you can just send me an email and let me know. Um, as for whether I ever experience bad days, moments, or feelings, um, in truth, I would say no. But I should qualify that or explain that so that it could be useful. Uh, so a uh, so do I ever experience let me say like uh uncomfortable. I'll say okay, uncomfortable. Do I ever feel uncomfortable? Yes. Do I ever experience aversion? Yes. So discomfort and aversion, yes. But do I, but I make a distinction. I wouldn't say that that's bad. So bad, you said bad days, moments, or feelings. So I wouldn't say any of those are bad. Uh, they can, I can sometimes experience discomfort or aversion. Uh, maybe I experience discomfort and aversion chronically. Some to a certain extent, I would say I'm chronically uh, uncomfortable and experiencing aversion, like every moment, in one sense. Uh, but I don't perceive that as bad. I mean, it's if that happens, then that happens, and I perceive that as that's just what's happening. I can either fight with it and be miserable, or not, and I just choose not to. There's also the business about bad days or moments. So that requires thinking about it in a way that I have learned to not do. Uh, because say, I, to say, so to say, if you think about a bad day that you had, think about a bad day. Could work the other way around. You could also work for a good day. If you say you had a good day, you had a bad day. But if you think about a bad day that you had, uh, this is very much in line with what I was exploring today. It's like, so was it all bad? Was everything about it bad? I mean, did you breathe? Did your heart beat? Is there some sunshine? Like, it couldn't have been all bad. So this idea that there's something, there's a bad day is actually, it's just an unhelpful way of thinking. So I would not recommend doing that. And if you really start to explore that, then you can start to realize that the idea that there's a bad anything is also nonsense. It just becomes, it's just another belief. Somebody says, when talking about life is good to us and the $100 billion thing you said, so we should make this a habit every moment to think this way? No. Uh, I, I mean, if you, if you can and you find that is useful, then that sounds great. But I was definitely not recommending that you should do that. Uh, I was only making that suggestion as a way of, uh, offering a different perspective because a different perspective can open up other options, which can be useful. That's the main point. Uh, so somebody says, I used to say no to going out of my front door. It was awful. I was so anxious and angry, but I just allowed all the feelings and now it's fine and I don't feel anxious or angry. I actually started feeling happy and looking forward to going out. Yeah, that's nice. Somebody says, 10 days ago, the question of yes would have been very helpful. My no destroyed a lot. Well, it's like the idea of the best time to have planted a tree was 40 years ago, and the second best time is today. So 10 days ago would have been nice, but you didn't have it then. So today is today's the second best time. Can it could help you to not destroy a lot going forward. Because the thing is, no matter what, uh, we're we always find ourselves where we are, and I think that we can frame that in unhelpful ways. So if I frame, oh, I'm in such a bad place, it's really shit now because I caused so much damage 10 days ago. That frames it in this way where the tendency then will be to focus on how bad things are and how unfortunate it is, which tends to spiral into more problems, but it's more useful to frame it in terms of, well, I'm so uh, fortunate that I have this knowledge and insight now that allows me to start to do things differently. Um, I mean, that's certainly a lot better than if it dragged on for another 10 days or 10 years or something like that, continuing to do the same things, indulge the same unhelpful habits, continue to think in the same unhelpful ways, continue to ruin my life. Much better that I can begin today to do things differently. And if I continue to apply the things that I've learned today, then bit by bit, day by day, my life gets better and better. Just imagine how awesome it could be in 5 years, 10 years. But a lot of the time if we frame it in the wrong way, we miss out on the opportunity. And then 10 years from now, we're thinking, if only 10 years ago I had made use of what I learned, but now I've really screwed myself over. So it has to be a point at which we're willing to turn it around. I would suggest now. Somebody says, I got a question from last week. I have started the process to write what I do want, and I find myself writing so many things in one page. Am I doing it correctly? That's fine. So the suggestion is really just to do exactly that. Give yourself permission to start to access what it is that you want. I mean, we have been trained, we've been conditioned, we've been taught to be fearful and to play small and uh, don't want to be disappointed, don't want to uh, get hurt, and so we deny ourselves, we censor. There's a part of us that does not, it doesn't know anything about those limitations. I mean, think about the if you've ever been, I mean, if you go anywhere really, you can see an example of this. I'm thinking of in a forest or in a field, but you can see it in a city too. You can see in a city, you can see little like weeds growing up in the cracks of the sidewalks and things like that. Uh, so I mean, think about these little plants, and the odds are in so many ways are against them. I mean, it's like, boy, it's not. I see little saplings sprouting up in the forest where the chances of them getting to grow up and into the canopy, it's like so small. I mean, they're gonna get eaten by mice or deer or uh they'll get to a certain size and then they're gonna for whatever reason they're gonna be crowded out or die or whatever. So that's the thing about nature is it doesn't know about those limitations. Because if it did, we don't everybody would be there would be no life happening. Really, think about that. There would be no life happening if we were all living just based on the like, the statistics and the data, it's like, oh God, we just off ourselves. It's like, well, there's no chance for me. Statistically speaking, I mean, there's no chance for me. So forget about it. Um, so but there's this totally unrealistic, unreasonable uh, part of us that knows nothing about any of that. And it's just this raw creative impulse. And it just says go. And uh, but the society really teaches us to shut that part down because you you go to school and you're told by well-meaning adults of all kinds, whether they're parents or teachers or aunts or uncles or whoever, and they say, oh, you don't really want to do that now, do you? You don't really want to do that. I mean, you don't want to wear that. You don't want to, go out in public like that. You don't want to, you don't want to do something risky like that. Um, and so we learn through various means to shut that stuff down. You got judged, critiqued. Somebody said your drawing is shit, your voice is shit, you have no rhythm, you can't dance, whatever. I mean, people tell us these things and then we're like, oh, gee, I didn't know. You didn't know, did you? Until somebody told you. I mean, here you were, you're just like, you're doing your thing. You're just like, you didn't, you didn't know it was up for critique. You didn't know it was like that. It was just a natural expression. It was a creative impulse. You're just singing, dancing, drawing, doing your thing, and then just being. It's natural to you. And then people come along and they say, "Oh God, don't do that, honey. You're embarrassing yourself." You're like, "Oh, I didn't know. But thanks for telling me. Now I'll play small." And so we learn to shut these things down. And it gets to a point where we don't it's the censorship is so instantaneous that we're not even aware consciously of these impulses because it gets shut down immediately. So the idea is just to allow yourself to start to connect with that. So it sounds like you're doing it right. Keep keep allowing that. I mean, I would say the awesome thing is that uh, you're you're able to access that so easily. You know, a lot of people are so shut down. It's a real at first for a lot of people it's really really hard. They're like, what do I write? I don't know what to write. I can't think of anything to write. And so in those cases, you just got to, whatever it is that's there, you got to write that. So if it's just, I don't know what to write, you just keep writing. I don't know what to write. I don't know what to write. I don't know what to write. I don't know what to write until something else emerges. You just have to keep writing. So in your case, I think it's amazing how wonderful that you're able to just keep writing so many things in one page. That just indicates that you're more easily able to access that part of yourself. So keep at it and things will continue to emerge from that. Somebody says, how saying yes to something can help to remove self-shame in general. Uh, did I say that? Uh, or no, I didn't say that, but you're saying that, and you want to know. Um, so how could saying yes to what is true and good and right for you, can only be good for you. Um, and shame is one of the, so shame is totally learned. I mean, that's very much what I was just talking about in terms of how we were trained. I mean, you didn't come into this world with shame. I mean, think about it. You came into this world naked, helpless, you know, peeing and pooping all over the place. You were, you know, like as far as being a productive human being, you were totally useless. You couldn't do anything. But you didn't know anything about shame. You only were taught that over time. Society teaches us shame. Society teaches us, oh, that's not good. You shouldn't be like that. Oh, that's bad. You should keep that hidden away. You need to change that. That's all what society teaches us. So the shame, and then we internalize that because we don't want to experience that from others because we experience that as pain. You know, like I said, there's this innocence to us. We're just going about our life, doing our thing, being ourselves. It's so beautiful and perfect. We're not here to impress anybody or do anything for anybody else. We're just being ourselves. And then other people tr trying to be helpful, I guess. Let us know. Oh, no, no, that's bad. You don't do that. And so that was painful. So we internalized that. We didn't want to allow others to do that to us. We didn't want to put ourselves in a position where we could be exposed or vulnerable and other people could uh, critique or comment on that. So we started to internalize that. So how could saying yes be helpful to that? Well, it would be in because you would uh, start to connect to more to that which is true for you, and you uh, would. I mean that would just start a process. It would be a virtuous cycle. I'm not proposing that it would necessarily overnight change that, uh, but and I think just to be fair, I think that what we experience as shame is probably part of the makeup of the human animal. So I think that we're very likely to continue to experience some of that kind of thing, that kind of energy or a sensation, whenever we are met with criticism of any kind. It's very likely to be the case because I think we really want to. I think there's a biological basis for fitting in. I think it's there's safety in groups. So I think biologically we want to fit in. But it kind of comes down to a choice. You can fit in and be miserable, or you can risk not fitting in and actually experience your something that that is I would call authentic fulfillment. It I don't know that you can have both at the same time. I don't know that you can feel like comfortable and safe and have authentic fulfillment at the same time. I think authentic fulfillment is risky. I think it comes with the risk because authentic fulfillment, if you think about it, there you are uniquely you. There is no one else who is like you exactly. So you being you, there's has to be met with some kind of critique by from somebody, unless or until everybody is secure within themselves. But as long as there are people who are insecure, then they're gonna critique, they're gonna judge. So I think it really comes down to a matter of choice. So I would say uh, it's unlikely that saying learning to say yes to what would be appropriate to say yes to would be an overnight transformation, total transformation, an elimination of self-shame. However, I think that it does begin a process which can turn into a virtuous cycle, which can reduce the hold that shame has in your life and allow you to experience more freedom. So somebody here says, can you please give me a practical daily technique to create more discernment and learn what to say yes to and what to say no to, and also any daily technique to be able to say no, even when it's hard for me because I'm more used to saying yes to avoid rejection or feeling abandoned. Uh, well, I, I would, I guess I would say a couple things come to mind. I mean, one would be, um, you could just make uh, write out a list every day of the things that you noticed over the last 24 hours that you said uh, no to compulsively, where that produced uh, pain for you, and also the things that you compulsively said yes to that created pain for you. I think just bringing awareness to that would be a really good first step. Because if you're not aware of those things, then there's nothing more that you can really do about it. So that would be the first thing, would just be to bring awareness to it. Um, that might be, there's a possibility that that might feel uncomfortable at first, but the idea is just to bring more awareness to those patterns so that you can then have more options for choosing differently. And then in terms of um, how to be able to say no, um, did I ever share with you the 3 points of view process? I think I have. I'm pretty sure with you personally, the one who asked this question. If that's the thing that comes to mind because here's what happens is normally uh, so if there's a situation where there is uh you have you can recognize that what would be most true for you would be to say no, but you are feeling compelled to say yes, then what's happening is in your mind, you're imagining what it would be like to say no, and you're projecting onto others how they will feel about you when you say no. And you're imagining that that's going to be something that you would not like. And so you're imagining that you would then feel bad about that. And so you're spiraling in that. You're imagining, oh, they'll feel this way, and then I'll feel bad, and then they're going to feel this way, and then I'm going to feel even worse. And this is going to be so awful that it's not worth saying no. In fact, there's no way I could say no. I have to say yes to avoid that. So the 3 points of view exercise uses the same process, but flips it so that you can begin to practice or try out different ways of doing it. Because the thing is, we don't actually know what other people will feel or think. We just project that. So you're already doing that in a negative way, negative in the sense that it's working against you. You can flip that and do it in a way that allows you to begin to try on different ways of different kinds of projections. So the way to do that would be imagine imagine saying no in that situation, and then notice when in that situation when you say no from the point of view of the other person or people, how do you imagine they would feel about you? And then you next uh, imagine in that situation when you've said no and those people feel that way about you, how would you feel? And then third step is in that situation when you've said no and they feel that way, and then you feel the way that you've just imagined, or rather, when they feel that way, how would you rather feel? How would you like to feel? And then you cycle through those steps repeatedly until you come to until your response to the second point of view, how would you feel in that situation, is what would be ideal for you. So scenario would be like this. um, if uh, somebody if a friend wants repeatedly asks me to borrow money, and I know that what would really be true for me would be to say no, but I compulsively say yes. So I would imagine in that situation, I say no. And from the point of view of my friend, how does my friend feel about me? And I think, well, my friend feels uh, disappointed and upset. Then how in that situation when I've said no and my friend feels disappointed and upset with me, how do I feel? And I said, well, I feel guilty. Then third step is in that situation when I've said no and my friend feels disappointed and upset, how would I like to feel? And how I would like to feel would be uh, clear and uh, and grounded. Then I go to first step in the situation where my friend asks me for money and I say no. How does my friend feel about me? And when I imagine it this time, maybe my friend feels, I imagine my friend feels uh, disappointed, but not really disappointed in me, just disappointed because they don't know what else to do. So they're feeling like afraid. Uh, Now, when in that situation, when I've said no, and I'm aware that my friend feels disappointed and afraid, how do I feel? And I said, well, I feel uh, a little uh, like kind of sad for my friend. I want my friend to uh, have better options? And then how would I like to feel in that situation? I'd like to feel uh, um, uh, optimistic about my friend being able to find better, more empowered options that will work long term for them. So I just continue in that until that second point of view is perfect. So that's that process. I would recommend using that. That will open up more options for you. And once you identify options that work better for you, that give you better results internally, then your subconscious will be happy with that. And that should become more or less automatic. So I would recommend that. All right. So somebody here says, I say no a lot so I can stay focused on what I want and not get distracted by 100 other shiny objects. How do I discern, remain open to life and be focused on my goals, or should I stay open and let life guide me instead of me thinking I'm making the rules and setting my goals? I appreciate your insights. Well, uh, I would say it depends. How's what you're doing working for you? If you're satisfied with results, then there's no need to make any change. If you're dissatisfied, then I would uh, make adjustments based depending on what the dissatisfaction is. So, do you have specific dissatisfaction in regard to that? If you do, then I could probably make a more targeted, useful recommendation. All right. This person says, I'm praying every day to trust life, God, and see that they are working for my best good. The definition of God is changing for me, though, through life from the biblical God to more open idea of God. I used to have an intimate relationship with the divine, but those days I feel myself being left on my own. For me, having that connection with the divine is important. I miss this for itself. Also, I want to feel truly helped, supported, and guided to achieve that vision I told you about. I want to trust that I am part of life and God. I want to trust that I am dancing with life rather than struggling with it. Uh, well, that sounds like you already have clarity of what you want. So I would just recommend working with that intention. So what the intention that I'm hearing is that you're wanting to have uh, an intimate, trusting relationship with the divine. Uh, it sounds like a personal relationship with the divine. And so I would just recommend that you work with that intention. And as you work with that intention, you can just see how that is uh, manifesting more in your life. Uh, you know, uh, I mean, that, as you work with it, you'll probably also see how the fact that that desire is there is already in a way um, evidence of the manifestation of what you want. If you really think about it, the fact that you have that desire is there is already like where did that desire come from? So in a way, that desire is already a manifestation of the kind of connection that you're looking for. Uh, you 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 understood that relationship in one way before, and uh, some of your religious beliefs have changed, and you had thought that the um, aspects of that relationship that were important to you were part of the religious uh, configuration. So when your religious views changed, then you thought that that meant that the personal, intimate relationship also went away. But I think what I'm understanding from what you're describing is what's being revealed to you is that that's not exactly right, that that relationship is still there. Uh, and it's not it's not bound by the religious views. It's independent of the religious views. So it's just that before you were overlaying particular religious understanding, but that's not that relationship is not limited by any religious beliefs. So somebody says, any ideas how to identify which beliefs are yes and which ones are saying no? Um, well, I would start with getting clear on what you want. So as I was talking about earlier, somebody was asking about they were mentioning that they're doing the exercise of writing what they want each day, and so I recommend doing that. And as I was pointing out earlier, the idea is to allow for that uncensored intelligence to express itself, to reveal to you about what is true and good and desirable for you, not what society has told you, but what is actually true for you. And uh, and as you do that, and that's an ongoing process, so that's not necessarily going to uh, be something that you're going to have some kind of ultimate revelation with, and certainly not necessarily overnight. But as you continue to explore that, you will get more and more clarity about what it is that you truly want. And then that will help you to have more clarity also about what to say yes to and what to say no to, because they're things which, I mean, just a very crude example, but just to illustrate this, if you have been, if your family has told you you must be a lawyer, you must be a lawyer, you must be a lawyer, our whole, for thousands of generations, our family has been lawyers. You must be a lawyer. Being a lawyer is the most important thing. If you're not a lawyer, you're nothing. So you are going to law school and you're doing all of the things to become a lawyer. Uh, and you you discover that actually there's nothing about being a lawyer that in any way is true for you. What is what is true for you is to do interpretive dance. You just you are so alive when you do interpretive dance. You just love interpretive dance. You can't get enough of it. Uh, then based on that clarity, you start knowing what to say yes and no to, and like so so there's nothing at all, even in the least, that is enlivening or true for me about law. Uh, so going to law school sounds like a no. Opportunities for interpretive dance sounds like a yes. I mean, it's like a very crude example, but that's what I would recommend is for number one is just get clear on what you really want, what's true for you. And like I said, it is not that's not something that you're likely to come to a ultimate answer with. It's an ongoing process. It's an ongoing exploration. So don't be disappointed or surprised if along the way there are layers to that. Maybe you go a certain direction for a while and then that might change. It might not, but it might. So just don't think that you have to come to some ultimate answer first. It's about uh process and opening that relationship. Somebody says, over the past few days, I had been feeling irrationally angry and feeling like a victim playing situations I've gone through in the past, generating negative emotions. I then become conscious of this and tell myself I don't have to believe these thoughts. I ask God to help me. I also feel frustrated that I haven't been able to be consistent with writing about what I do want. I want to do this daily and generally applying your teachings such as the ASK framework and SLIPs. I usually ask for financial abundance, but I've been asking for contentment lately. Hey, that's awesome. That's not that there's anything wrong with financial abundance. Uh, it's just that that evolution uh, to discover that what's deeper there is contentment seems like a very positive sign. I mean that's evidence that what you're doing is working. That because that's what should happen. We 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 know, okay, we experience pain and we connect that pain to money. For example, we think, oh, I don't have enough money. That's why I'm experiencing pain. I'm experiencing so much anxiety because of bills and this, and I can't afford these things that I want to do. And it's all about money. So we're experiencing pain connected to money, and we think, ah, what I want is money, which is fine. It's great. I'm all for money. Anybody who wants to send me money, just let me know. I'll receive money gladly. Uh, and as you work with that, as you allow that to express through you, you get more clarity and you start to realize, well, what's deeper than that is contentment. Because you start to realize no amount of money is going to give contentment by itself. But what I'm really looking for through the money is contentment. So that's a great indication that you're doing the right things. That like it's working because you're getting that clarity. At just putting attention consistently on what you want, just asking that question, just really honestly investigating that, even if just informally, uh, has this powerful effect because it will start to give you more and more clarity about what you actually want. Again, not that contentment is in conflict with financial abundance. They could go together. You could have financial abundance and contentment. So I'm not saying that one is superior to the other in all senses, but it is that contentment is a deeper aspect of what you're really looking for. So money alone would not satisfy what you're really looking for. Money could be compatible with what you're looking for, but it's not ultimately what you want. What you want is contentment. So I think that's great. Um, you say, I'm sure this period of irrational anger and frustration will pass. Well, true. Although I think it's interesting that you call it irrational. What if, see, this is like this violence that we're taught to do. Uh, and we're taught that it's okay to be violent towards ourselves in this way. So we can just do this violence. So we say it's irrational. It's irrational. It's irrational anger and frustration. Really? Maybe not. Maybe uh, if you allow for these parts of you to have safety to exist and to express themselves with more support and better options, you might get better results instead of just being dismissive and saying these irrational anger and frustration will pass. Um, I think what I would propose is talk to those parts of yourself. So there's a part of yourself which is angry, and you could just acknowledge that part. I'm sure you can remember times in your life when you were angry, maybe when you were a little child, and uh, that little child was innocent. Is it irrational? It's just innocent. So instead of being dismissive of it, you could talk to that part of you and just acknowledge, hey, you're angry. You're feeling angry. Uh, and just ask that part, what is it that you really want? Because that part doesn't want anger. Anger is a strategy. It doesn't want anger. Just like when you were a little child, you didn't want anger. You used anger as a strategy because you didn't know how to get what you wanted. But what you wanted was like love, affection, connection, attention. These are the things you wanted. And so it's the same with this part. This part of you is totally innocent, and its anger is not bad or irrational. It's just that you haven't made the safe space for it to express itself and to learn better options. So you can talk to it and let it know that, it's like, hey, I notice that you're feeling angry, and that's okay. And let's explore this a little bit. What is it that you're really wanting? And as you discover what it really wants, then you can start to find more uh, options that could allow you to achieve that work better for you. So the part, I promise you, these parts are not committed to frustration and anger. They only use those strategies because they don't know anything better. And the more that you isolate them and shame them and just say, I hope that it's going to pass all this irrational anger and frustration, it actually makes things harder. So that's my recommendation, is to talk to those parts and make a safe space for them. You want to say anything you could suggest that could help me to be more consistent with applying these teachings? Yeah. What I just suggested. Be kind to yourself, be gentle, make a safe space within yourself for all parts of yourself. I think it's really helpful to think back, if you can, to remember what it was like when you were a child and remember how you struggled, you had to have struggled with so many things. I think we all did. We struggled with all kinds of things. We experienced all kinds of things that were difficult and confusing, and we didn't we didn't have the support, or we didn't know how to access the support that would have helped us with those things, and so we were left to our own limited knowledge of what to do and what had been modeled for us, which was usually not all that great. So we resorted to anger, hiding, frustration, all these kinds of things. So if you can remember that, and you can have compassion for yourself, just remember, as a little child, you were totally innocent. I mean, there was nothing bad about you. You were dealing with difficult situations and you didn't know any better. Uh, I think that can be really helpful. And then just to treat all parts of yourself in that way, with that compassion, acknowledging their innocence and their positive intentions. So really be gentle with yourself, compassionate with yourself, make a safe space within yourself, invite all parts of yourself to be uh, safe to express themselves, be welcoming of the positive intentions of all parts of yourself, and be willing to be creative and explore new ways that are more resourceful for achieving the things that really matter to you. And you'll get better results, I'm pretty sure. Okay. Somebody says, I realized 10 minutes ago how my tennis instructions were bad. Instructors were bad. Um, was that useful to you to realize that? I mean, was it yeah, okay, great. I'm not sure of the context of how that is, but I'm glad that's useful to you. So somebody says, I was wondering if there's a way to connect both. Uh, both. I don't remember the context, so you'll have to remind me of what both is. Uh, Somebody says it's a shame worldwide illusion we passed to each is shame a worldwide illusion we pass to each other in history if we start to call shame window and feel the water instead of that feeling it couldn't exist maybe. Uh it's an int yes, I mean I think that makes sense. There are I I imagine, I mean, it seems certainly seems a possibility that there could be a culture that um, doesn't know anything about shame. So I mean, it's got to be cultural conditioning. Had to has to be. I think there might be a biological underpinning for it, but I don't. But that doesn't have any inherent meaning. So the meaning is assigned to it culturally. It has to be. So I think it's a really great insight. Yes, at some point that idea was generated and became popular, which it's a way. It is a way of getting uh, exerting control and getting conformity. So, that's probably why it's popular. It's unfortunately, it's very short-sighted. It really does not give good results. I was thinking about this today, how I don't remember who it was that's there's a quote that's I think it must be a Jiddu Krishnamurti kind of quote. It sounds like something he would say. It's like it's no sign of how do you say it? It's like no sign of it's not basically it's to paraphrase it's like it's not a good thing to be considered sane in a society that is completely insane. And I was thinking about how the the world we live in is really like the emperor's new clothes. I mean, it is we live in absolute insanity. The sorry to paint such a rosy picture here, but it's like the politicians are insane, parents are insane, teachers are insane, the religious leaders are insane, the people are insane. Uh, and so the cultural programming just runs so deep and very, very, very few people question it. But we can each do that for ourselves. So I wouldn't recommend waiting for society to change. I wouldn't recommend for anybody, to like society doesn't need to do away with the idea of shame before we can be free of it individually. Somebody says, regarding beliefs, this is where I'm stuck. The mind says it doesn't matter if you're enough, things still don't work out for you the way you want because that's been a reality since forever. Is this an association problem as well? Yes. This belief isn't related to the I am. Seems like a pattern I can't break out of, but I do have the awareness of this, which does count for something, right? Yeah. Um, so I mean, it's definitely a belief, which is an association. So there's absolutely no fundamental reality in which things don't work out for you the way that you want because that's been the reality since forever. Uh, that is that only seems to be true because of the frame that you're seeing it through, and then the evidence that you have that supports that idea. But if you change the frame size, then if you say if you say things don't work out for you the way you want, so things don't work out for you the way you want. So who is the you that wants? If you change the frame size on that, then you could realize, well, maybe the one who you're considering yourself to be is some aspect of the conscious mind. So it's some belief, it's some habit of meaning that's been repeated over and over, and you identify with that. And so from that point of view, it seems to be the case. But if you change that frame size, maybe maybe who you are is much larger than that. Maybe who you are is inclusive of the totality. Maybe the totality is absolutely perfect. Maybe it already is exactly what you want from that point of view, from that frame size. So it's definitely a belief, and it's not working well for you, it sounds. So I would definitely recommend uh, investigating that. And so you say, do I have do but I do have the awareness of this, which does count for something. Yeah. So the awareness uh already the awareness that of the belief and the fact that it is a belief is already evidence of a process which is occurring, which is the release or transcendence of the belief. So you can just continue to investigate that and trust that that will that process will continue to occur. I did give some suggestions earlier for things that that would be useful here for investigating beliefs, so you could work with those as well. Somebody says when experiencing something shameful, imagining something funny and ridiculous helps. Yeah, yeah. If that some people do find that useful. So if you find that useful, that's great. Uh, so the person who was asking about the relationship with the divine earlier says, how can I work with the intention? I would just acknowledge that that is your intention. I mean, because you expressed it as an intention that you want, that's what you want. So I would just recommend that you acknowledge that. You could, if you, it's often helpful to write it and then review that. So otherwise you can have a tendency to forget. And the more that you acknowledge that intention, then the more you'll see how that will grow in your life. Because if you acknowledge that you have the intention for this kind of relationship with the divine, then the more that you acknowledge that, the more that you'll start to see how that relationship with the divine is there, how it is manifesting, how it is growing and developing. Uh, like I was saying earlier, the very fact that you have the desire is already itself a manifestation of that desire. And so as you continue to work with that intention, then you'll just have more and more clarity about that. Somebody says, what if you associate as a Renaissance man or woman? How do you? I'm always laughing because I thought of it's totally inappropriate, but I was just thinking about Renaissance fair. I was thinking I was imagining you dressed up in Renaissance fair attire. Uh, how do you find focus when you love to expand in all directions in a society that seems to reward focused accomplishment? Well, I mean, I would recommend be true to yourself. So I wouldn't recommend uh, rigidly adhering to an identity because an identity is a uh, relatively superficial layer. Like an identity is a vehicle for certain kinds of expression, but but it should just be useful to you. It's not something that should bind you. So I would not recommend identifying or associating as the role or the identity. Uh, so I would just recommend, I'm going to sound like a broken record, but I would recommend doing the daily practice of just exploring what do you really want. Because uh, maybe what's true for you is that you find it very rewarding and important to explore lots of new things, but maybe not. So if you just continue to attach to that role or that identity, then you'll feel compelled to continue to feed that because you you mistake yourself to be that. So if that declines or if that changes, then you feel that there's something harmful happening to you, like you're dying. If you're not expanding in all directions, then it would seem like you are dying. But that wouldn't be true. That's only that the role is not being fed. So I would recommend getting clearer on what you actually want and then uh give your energy to that without concern about roles or identities. Just give your energy to what really matters to you. And um because if you're identified, I mean, part of what you're saying here, you're if you're associated as a Renaissance man, then notice you're saying that then you've set up this society that seems to reward focused accomplishment. So now you've got this enemy. Society is your enemy who's working against you. Your role is to be expansive in all directions, but society is working against you because society only rewards focused accomplishment. So it just feeds into itself. It's just but in a way that's binding to bind or creates a sense of binding for you. So I wouldn't recommend doing that. Lost it. There we go. Uh, Somebody says, can you talk more about mind generating our reality and go deeper into the nature of reality? Uh, Probably not. Um, so I, I mean, why? Um, so, because that sounds like a very, the way I'm understanding that is it's very abstract, theoretical, and I'm more interested in if there's something specific that you are something specific where you're experiencing a challenge or difficulty or where you would like to grow in a particular way, then I could probably offer some suggestions that would be potentially useful for that. So I'm wondering what specifically do you want? What would having that knowledge of how mind generates reality um, and the deeper nature of reality, what specifically would that do for you or help you with that you would like more of uh, or more clarity about in your life? Somebody says tennis instructors are insane. I, I guess by in alignment with what I was claiming earlier, than as part of society in general, tennis instructors by no not by virtue of the fact that they are tennis instructors, though. I don't want to single out tennis instructors. They're probably, as a group, they're no more or less insane than anybody else. Right. Uh, so somebody says your observation that everyone is mad reminds me of the old Yorkshire saying. There's no but sane but tha and me, and I'm not so sure about that. Yeah, I I'm not so sure about me either. Uh, so somebody says, I've decided I don't expect anything from anybody from now, but then I want to be alone my whole life. Is it healthy? Well, um, I don't know. I think it's a better question is it practical? If you genuinely want to be alone and it's practical for you, then that sounds fine. But I from I don't know, I think for most of us it's very impractical. So this is a situation that would be for me, this would be about uh, learning this investigation of saying what can I say yes to. So I have an inclination to be antisocial, to think, okay, all these people are insane. I just want to be alone. I don't want anything from anybody. So then, uh, that's interesting, but is it practical? Is it realistic? And I'm like, well, no, it seems like I find myself around people, interacting with people. So I'm noticing then that it's a setup for me to say no, uh, compulsively, just in a knee-jerk way, just say no, no, no to these people, no to this situation, no to their behaviors, no to my feelings, no to all. So then I would investigate that as what is here that I could say yes to that would be aligned with my greater good, that would actually be supportive for what I really want. So I could say, there's an option for me to let go of unnecessary tension and resistance in this situation. I can say yes to that. There is an option for me to accept people as they are. I can say yes to that. So that's how I approach it. It's just, why am I going to make myself miserable if I'm around people? Why am I going to be saying no to what's happening? I do it sometimes. I mean, I was joking earlier about being on a pedestal. I am not on a pedestal. That was completely a joke. I am in the trenches. I, there's like, I've got the no's are there, the habitual reactive no's, but then it's just an opportunity to realize, okay, so I'm habitually saying no to what's here. I'm around people and I'm habitually saying no and I'm making myself miserable. So why am I going to do that? If I if I if there's an impulse or a desire that is true and I want to isolate myself in a cave somewhere, and then I can do that. I can say yes to that, and I can take action aligned with that. But unless or until that happens, why am I going to make myself miserable saying no to what's here? So instead, I can say yes to what it is that I can say yes to. That's how I approach it. Somebody says it seems at odds with your message at the top of this talk. You have to give me a context to know what it is that it seems at odds. Somebody says, how do you distinguish a true no that comes from alignment with a no that that's actually a frightened part trying to preserve familiarity? Well, just notice if you're feeling frightened or not. I mean, like I really think that It's not nearly as complicated as we make it out to be. It just seems we make the complication the because it is it so to be yourself is is un is I would say almost certainly has to uh, draw unwanted negative attention and criticism from others. And so to say yes to what is true for you and to say no to what is not true to you means to be yourself. It means to be authentic. And that's going to draw unwanted attention, criticism, judgment, hostility. So for most of us, there's a built-in resistance to that. But but then we confuse ourselves. We lie to ourselves that, oh, I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm not clear on what's true, who I am, what's real, what I want, what I don't want. I don't really know. Nah, you know. You just tell yourself that you don't because buys you some time, more time to make yourself miserable so that you don't risk other people judging you. That's what I think. I could be wrong, but that's what I think. Somebody says, from my perspective, there are more pros than cons to being alone. Well, yeah, that may or may not be the thing. Like I said earlier, is just what is practical. Because we can live in these theoretical bubbles in our minds. Well, theoretically, there are more pros to cons to being alone, but is it practical? In this world, do you find yourself alone? And can you sustain that? And if so, and you're happy with that, great. But if not, I'm just suggesting it's optional to make yourself miserable. You don't have to do that. So, and saying no to your own experience is a way to make yourself miserable. If you're telling yourself, this shouldn't be happening, I shouldn't be here, these people shouldn't be here, it should be other than this, and but here it is, then sounds like a recipe for misery. And I'm just proposing that that's optional. You don't have to do that. Uh, I mean, in theory, we can we can imagine all kinds of theoretical what do you call these things? There's a word for these utopias. You can imagine a utopia, and you can keep imagining all kinds of utopias forever, but where the rubber meets the road, so to speak, they end up being impractical because they always depend upon certain things. You have to, these are the inconvenient truths about these utopias, especially they become really obvious when they start to become like political uh, philosophies that are put into action because then they end up becoming genocide. I mean, it's always like they're always utopian visions. It's just the inconvenient practical reality is that in order to bring that about, you kind of have to destroy everything. You have to kill off everybody and destroy everything in order to bring about that utopia, because that utopia does not exist in this reality. That utopia exists in some fantasy, in a theoretical bubble. So I don't know how to be alone in this world. If you can figure it out and you want to do that and that works for you, awesome. But I'm just saying that if it's not a practical thing for you, then you don't have to make yourself miserable. You could choose otherwise. What somebody says, what parts of me still believe I have to earn safety, clarity, or permission before I'm allowed to fully lead and receive at the level I'm capable of? I've done so much work, and why won't this game end? Why am I still doing this to myself, knowing fully well? I don't know about what parts. I mean, you could answer that question, but 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 really, it's just you're just dealing with these beliefs. Um, I have to earn safety. I have to earn clarity. I have to have permission before I'm allowed to fully lead and receive at the level I'm capable of. Is it true? I mean, you just investigate those until that becomes clear that it's nonsense. I have to earn safety. I would go even deeper. I would go straight to the heart of it. The Because the underlying belief, in order for I have to earn safety to make sense, it would have to be an underlying belief that uh, I need safety. And then even the underlying belief there is that safety exists. Safety is a thing. I'd go straight for the heart and just go right for safety. Safety is a thing and do away with that. Because once you see through that, once you realize that there is no such thing, when safety becomes nonsense, then you're not going to suffer with the other beliefs that depend upon that fundamental belief. Because I mean, or you could go one at a time. You go through, I have to earn safety and make that obvious that that's nonsense to yourself. Because it is. I have, you could try, I have to earn safety. Did that work? Is that clear that it's nonsense? I mean, you can you can do this with each of the parts. I just examine I until that becomes clear that's nonsense. Have. So you can become clear that have is nonsense. Two. So two is nonsense. Earn. But in any case, I would just recommend just treat them as beliefs that you want to release and use any of the methods that you have available to you that you can um, that can support you in releasing those beliefs. So this person about the wanting to be alone says, I talked about close relationship, not people in general. I don't want to have expectations, and I don't want people having expectations for me. Well, so I, I don't know that you can control other people having expectations of you. So I wouldn't recommend making your okayness, peace of mind, happiness, or freedom dependent upon other people having or not having expectations of you. You could choose to let go of expectations for within yourself. That seems to be available to you. So that part you could definitely let go of, and you could include the expectation that other people should not have expectations, right? So you could just address your end of it. Just take care of your own business, which would be your own expectations. If you realize that having expectations is causing you problems, then you could choose to let go of those expectations. And as I'm pointing out, that could also include the expectation that other people should not have expectations. So if you let go of all of your expectations, then other people are allowed to have their expectations and it doesn't matter to you. Because if you don't have the expectation that they should not have expectations, then it doesn't matter if they have expectations. It's their business anyway. It's not yours. Uh, Okay, so the person is clarifying said, I said that I wake up in the morning with aversion and discomfort. How does that fit with your original message today about changing how we wake up? Uh, so if you're saying that you wake up in the, I'm not sure if you're saying that you wake up in the morning with aversion or discomfort, or you're saying I wake up with aversion or discomfort. I was saying that on what I was saying earlier about my own experience is that I'm experiencing something that maybe could be called aversion or discomfort, these impulses, these tendencies, these habits, these reactions that are there. Uh, and but I don't need to do anything with them. I'm not turning them into a problem. I'm not fighting against them. So I would, so that part fits, I think, exactly with what it is that I was saying earlier in terms of saying, learning the discernment and saying yes to what can be said yes to that's supportive. So if there's an impulse, and that impulse could easily be interpreted as a discomfort, and discomfort, there's a habit, a conditioning uh, to tend to interpret discomfort as something bad or problematic, and then that becomes something to try and fix or fight against, then that easily spirals into something that I don't want to encourage in my life. So instead, I can acknowledge those impulses. They don't really have names. They don't really have meaning. I'm just saying that that would be the maybe the easiest thing to just to connect the easiest ideas to connect them to, but they don't actually have that meaning. Uh, and just seeing them for what they are, it's like, okay, there's an impulse. There's a tendency to interpret that impulse as something, as discomfort. And that easily, the habit would be to go in a direction that I don't want with that. So given that, why bother? Why am I going to bother giving energy to that? Uh, so instead, there's just, okay, what's here that I can say yes to? I'm not going to waste my time and energy on fighting with something. And I don't even know that it's true. It's just a habit to interpret this in this particular way. Why am I going to say no to that? Why am I going to fight with that? There's just something that's occurring. Uh, Instead, I can notice, okay, here I am. Could I say yes to that? Yeah, I can say yes to that. Here I am. I don't have any, I'm not going to fight with that. Uh, mm, I'm able to, it's like I'm able to experience sensations. Okay, I can say yes to that. I uh I'm able to have thoughts about the sensations. I can say yes to that. I don't necessarily agree with or like all of the thoughts that I have, but I could say yes to the fact that I'm able to have thoughts. It's not inherently problematic. It could potentially be useful, so I can say yes to that. So I think it's coherent. So this person says, Lena Del Rey. I don't know who that is, but some person says born to die, and I say born to be surrounded. Yeah, it's so we've all got our own filter. How we see, like it's none of those things, but we all have our own path, which is there for us to explore. So some people come into this life, and the filter is born to die. So that's how they see it. They see it as born to die. And that offers the opportunities that it offers. I mean, I think I can't know what is true for anybody else, but I think that there. at least one possibility. If the tendency is to see Born to Die, then the opportunity could be to see through that. Like maybe it's something other than that. Maybe there's some other possibility here. Unless Born to Die is working well. If Born to Die is working well, then great. No problem. But if Born to Die is producing some unwanted results, then there's a possibility, the potential is there to see through that, or to to have that tendency as the path or the opportunity to see something beyond that. And similarly, if you come into this life and for you it's born to be surrounded, then if that's working well for you, great. But if it's not working well for you, then the opportunity that that presents is to see through that or beyond that to what is here that's other than and more useful to you than born to be surrounded. Maybe, and I'm not going to propose that I know what the answer is, but just as an example, maybe it's like born to accept, born to welcome, born to uh, have peace. Those might be options. This person says, seems a fine line between discomfort and a negative emotion. Yeah. If you slow it down enough, though, then that becomes clearer. So it's a finer line the faster that things are happening, but it becomes less fine the more you slow it down. So if you practice slowing it down, then you can start to have clearer discernment about the difference between, because it's like what I was saying is there's some kind of like energetic something, you could say. There's some kind of movement, there's some kind of impulse of some kind, and we could even get subtler than that, but let's just start there. And then there's a meaning assigned to it of discomfort. It's not discomfort, but the meaning is assigned to it of discomfort. Now at discomfort, still it's more or less neutral. It's just like it's just a categorization. This is discomfort versus comfort. It's not inherently problematic at that point, but then it starts to become a slippery slope because then we go into, well, discomfort is bad. Discomfort is a problem. But it's but if we just take it back a step, it's like discomfort's not a problem or bad. It's only the next step that proposes that there's an association between discomfort and bad. This is because we process and think in by association. I mean, it's all association. If you bring it back to the fundamentals, you have this just like raw sensory data, and it doesn't have any meaning, but it starts to glom together and form these associations and then more and more complex associations. And so it all seems to start to mean something and take shape. But if you slow it down enough, you can start to make that discernment and notice. And it takes patience because the habits usually, I mean, the habits are fast. The habits are so fast that really requires patience to just be willing to slow it down. And a lot of people don't have that patience, which I understand. Yeah, that's why I say I'm usually last stop for people, because who wants this? I mean, very few people want this. Mostly we want the magic wand thing, like just fix my problem. And um, when we can't get that, eventually then we'll start to be more receptive to a more mindful approach that just requires more patience, where you have to be willing to slow it down and investigate and start to have this discernment where the impulse is there. It's like freak out, just get upset, just get angry, just blame, just do something, get upset already, just do something. And when there's enough suffering that's come from that, then there's a willingness to like, okay, hold on, that doesn't work. So instead of freaking out, instead of getting upset, let me just slow it down and investigate to see what's really going on. And then we can start to notice, okay, there's an impulse. Doesn't mean anything. Then there's a label, discomfort. Still doesn't really mean much of anything. But then it starts to spill over into, okay, but then that means bad. Then that means I'm going to be limited. Then that means I'm going to experience pain. Then that means that nothing's going to work for me. Then that means I'm going to fail in life. Then that means that I'm going to continue to fail in life. Then that means there's going to be more pain. It just starts to stack really, really fast. But if you slow it down, then you can bring it back and just start to recognize there's nothing actually going on here at all. Despite the fact that there are alarms going off that are saying there's a big problem, this is unacceptable. If you really slow it down enough, there is nothing at all going on. Nothing at all. So, but like I say, this is last stop. People do not want this. I mean, you do, but most people don't. Uh, Born to Being. Nice. I like that one. They say last question. Yes, true. This will be the last question, and then we'll wrap up for today. How can I react when I feel stuck in intense bad feelings? Um, Kind of what I was just describing. So, so when you, so notice you call it intense bad feelings. So we could, so that already is an indication that you've jumped several steps ahead in the process. I'm not saying that you've done anything wrong. I'm just saying that's an indication that things have moved really fast because you say, we could say, let's take it back a step. What could you say for sure? Could maybe say there's feeling. Okay, so let's just start there. So there's feeling. Then you add into that it's intense feeling. Okay. So you're comparing this feeling to other feeling in terms of intensity. So there's some kind of spectrum. You say there's less intense, there's more intense. You're saying this is more intense rather than less intense. Okay, it's not entirely true, but it's still not a problem, right? I mean, it's like there's feeling. Is feeling a problem? No. Intense feeling. Is that a problem? No. Not in and of itself, right? I mean, if you were experiencing intense ecstasy, you probably wouldn't have an objection to that unless you did. But um, so intense isn't inherently bad. But then you say bad feelings, right? So there's feelings, not a problem. Intense feelings, unnecessary, but not inherently problematic. Then you say intense bad feelings. So bad. Now, just to say bad, it's so loaded. I would say it carries with it a lot of weight, right? If you say bad. So how do you know it's bad? How do you know these are bad feelings? Now, if you, like I say, this is most people don't want to do this, and I understand why. I mean, I wouldn't want to do it. It's only out of necessity that I do it, but I would recommend slowing it down and really investigating, well, how do I know that these feelings are bad? It's just because I've formed that opinion. There's associations. If you really start to examine it, you'll start to notice, well, these feelings seem to be like other feelings that I experienced at other times, and those situations in which I experienced those feelings were situations in which I was afraid or where there seemed to be lack or there was whatever it was. So it's just by association. Well, you say because you don't want to feel that way, but you have to slow that down too. How do you know that you don't want to feel that way? And it's the same thing. It's just by association because somebody says tooth being pulled. Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's just association with experiences. And then you determined that those experiences You gave meaning to those experiences. You decided this experience is bad. Bad is bad. Bad, it means pain. Bad means I'm not going to have enough. Bad means I'm going to suffer. Bad means that nobody will love me. Bad means whatever you think it means. It doesn't mean anything. Bad is completely meaningless. There's no meaning whatsoever. Bad. Think about it. Bad. Bad. Just try this. Say, just repeat the sound. Bad. 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 When you repeat it enough, you start to notice it's totally meaningless. It's just this sound. It doesn't mean anything. Somebody who does not speak English would not know what that means because it doesn't mean anything. So the so this idea is only bolstered and supported by the associations. And those associations are also other ideas that don't have any inherent meaning. They only are given meaning or loaned meaning because of the other associations. And on and on and on and on it goes. If you really start, that's if you pull it all apart, you realize there is nothing here. There is no meaning at all in the whole system. Where do you begin? I mean, if you pull it, if you go back and back and back and back and you deconstruct all of the things, at what point, at a certain point, you realize, well, there's nothing left to make any meaning out of. What are you going to make meaning out of? It all depends on the other meaning. It's all an illusion. It's just this thing, you say bad, and bad doesn't mean anything. It's just by association, all the things that to you are bad. And then those things, how do you know what they are? Well, you don't know what they are. Like somebody said, tooth being pulled. So tooth being pulled. Well, how do you know anything about tooth being pulled? You don't know anything about tooth being pulled. You only know about so in theory, you know about the things that you associate with tooth being pulled. Well, how do you know anything about those things? You don't know anything about those things. You only know about those things because of what you associate with those things. It's this is it actually is all metaphor. We don't know anything about anything, but we say it's like these other things. It's like these other things. What's bad? Well, I don't know anything about bad, but bad is like getting a tooth pulled. Bad is like somebody hitting me. Bad is like losing money. Bad is like not being approved of. Bad is like all these things. But how do you know what all those things are? You don't. You say it's like these other things. You see, it's a house of cards. It's all a bunch of empty, meaningless stuff that's all propping one another up, and it gives the illusion that there's something there. So if you say, well, you say because I had the tooth pulled. Yes, I understand. And that's why I say that I really understand that this can seem like a bunch of like abstract nonsense, and it would not and it cannot be at all appealing to anybody but the most desperate. Sorry to lump you in. But it's like when you have tried all the other things to help yourself and you're like, okay, none of the other things are quite doing it. Then you get to this point and you're willing to have the patience for what seems like absolute insanity because it sounds like gaslighting. I understand. If you say because I had the tooth pulled and I'm like, well, hold on a second, let's deconstruct that. And you're like, no, 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 you're gaslighting me. I had the tooth pulled. It hurt. I hear you. I understand. I really do. I get it. I'm not trying to gaslight anybody, and I am pointing out that if you've had enough suffering, then you're going to be willing to investigate and question, okay, but what really honestly happened? If you really investigate it, so you can remember, and I'm not even going to go into like did the thing even happen, but let's assume the thing happened. Let's assume that you had the tooth pulled. Let's assume that was a real thing. Still, what specifically about that means anything? There's nothing about that that means anything. It really isn't. Some people like the same objective thing. Some people will have certain associations with, and other people will have different associations. Some people will say that was the most amazing experience of my life, and some people will say it was the worst experience of my life. Some people say it was so painful. Some people say it was so pleasurable. Now I know you'll say, well, no, who's going to say that having a tooth pulled was pleasurable? I'm sure there's somebody. I'm Google it. I'm sure there's somebody out there. I've never Googled that in particular, but I'm sure there's somebody out there who would say, look it up on Reddit. Sure on Reddit there's somebody who's like, what, what, why do I experience being having teeth pulled is so pleasurable? Somebody out there does, because it's not inherently anything. It doesn't inherently have any meaning. It's only because of the other things that we associations that we bring to it. If you didn't know anything, or if you didn't think you knew anything, if you didn't have anything else to bring to this, it would be clearly exactly what it is and nothing more. It's only because you bring other things to it. I I know I know it sounds crazy because we're programmed to think having a tooth pulled is bad. Having a tooth pulled is painful. Having a tooth pulled is no good. And I'm not proposing that anybody should seek out having a tooth pulled, uh, or that it's a problem to experience it in any particular way. If you experience it as bad and painful, and you don't have need to have a tooth pulled, then there's no problem probably in that. But uh, but this investigation can be really useful for understanding whatever it is that you seem to experience as a problem. So if you're convinced that there is something that is a problem in your life and you investigate it in this way and you deconstruct it, you can get to the clarity that there is nothing there, and that uh and just that, even if the old programming is still running, even if the old programming is like takes over and has you, writhing. I've used this example because I had a couple of experiences with kidney stones that I experienced as just unbelievable pain. Like, just I couldn't do anything else, it didn't seem. I was literally writhing. I was literally, it was like, I'm like, oh my God, this is unbearable. It's just rolling around trying to get some semblance of something other than this extreme discomfort. Uh, so does 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 this knowledge mean that I'm immune to that from now on? If I was to have an experience of kidney stones, would I be able to experience that in a as pleasure? I don't know. I don't, but I'm not suggesting that that's necessary. I'm, I'm just saying the knowledge alone, uh, can be sufficient just to know that none of this is what I think it is. Just that knowledge alone. If you can really honestly have that knowledge, it's not enough to have it as a theory. It has to be something that you can truly know. That so that's why you have to invest. You don't have to do anything. But if you want the knowledge, it's necessary to investigate it so that you can really have that knowledge. It can't be something that's second hand. You can't just take my word for it. It won't work. Taking my word for it up to a point is useful in as much as it invites you to do the investigation. Because if you just say Joe's full of shit, there's that he's just absolutely insane, then you're not going to do the investigation. But if you say, well, he seems to have some useful things, maybe he's right about this, seems wackadoodle, but what the hell, I'll investigate it. Then uh, you being willing to trust that is useful in as much as it invites you to do the investigation. But ultimately, you have to do that investigation and come to that realization for yourself. Um, but then having the knowledge, the honest knowledge itself is can be sufficient. It's not ideal, because like I get that. I mean, it'd be more ideal to not experience the discomfort and pain and be able to only experience bliss. Um, but one step at a time. I mean, at the very least, I know that it's possible to have that knowledge honestly and that for that knowledge to be sufficient, even if in the moment there can be this overwhelming habit that asserts itself. Uh, so it's worth doing the investigation, I think. And so in the case of having a tooth pulled, I think it could be useful just to investigate and at least be able to recognize that having a tooth pulled is not inherently anything. There's nothing good nor bad, painful nor not nor pleasurable about that inherently. As far as you can say anything about it, the only thing you could say that's inherently true about having a tooth pulled is that a tooth is pulled, and that's it. Everything else that goes along with that is only association. So the association, eh, now, I don't know exactly how I don't know exactly how that first is formed. I think that's a very interesting question. And not that I didn't see anybody else ask that, but it just came to me. I think it's an interesting question. How did these associations get formed in the first place? Like, how did this originate? Like, how did the idea of pain come about in the first place? Uh, I don't know the exact answer to that. Um, and uh, even so, just to have just to do the investigation and know that whatever it is that I'm experiencing, if the habit is to assign a meaning that is unhelpful, if the habit is to assign a meaning that this is bad, that I need to avoid this, that I need to reject this, that's only, I mean, it is insane by definition, according to me, because there's the reality, which is here, which is this is apparently happening. Not the meaning, but the bare raw facts of the matter. If there's a tooth being pulled, then apparently there is that. Uh, but but the meaning that's assigned to that is not what's actually here. It's not what's actually happening. The meaning is something that's layered on top of that. And it all draws upon past things. And again, I don't know exactly where that all originated from, but it's if I'm certain that if I through and through do not know what any of this is, if I have no associations, then there's nothing happening. There's no way to experience anything. It can't be any experience of anything. Uh, so the experience itself is dependent upon these meanings that are associations that are drawn from the past. And it's all just propping one another up. So tooth being pulled is just tooth being pulled. Tooth being pulled is bad or tooth being pulled is painful depends upon these associations. Now you say, well, there was a time when I had one tooth pulled and I'd never had any other tooth pulled prior to that. So how did I know to associate pain with that? If it was, maybe it's just inherent in the experience. I say no, there's nothing inherent in the experience. Somehow, and this is where I don't know how, I don't know exactly how there's some miracle that's taking place there. Maybe not in the way that we would always prefer, but a miracle nonetheless that is able to do this kind of lateral thinking that associates this with that. Like if you've never had a tooth pulled and then you have a tooth pulled and somehow you're able to associate pain with that, how does that happen? It's a miracle that there's some way of doing that association. It's just that if you don't, if that happens without you, if that's like willy-nilly, then chances are a good portion of the time that's going to work out in ways that are not what you would prefer. So if you investigate that, you have the ability to make changes to that. So that's why I recommend it. It's 154. I'm going to shut my mouth and blessings to you all. Have a wonderful rest of your day. I will see you next time. Take care. Bye for now.